Hey everybody, this is TNArtist. Hope you're doing great. I know that I'm having a fantastic day here. The rainstorms are kind of coming through, but it's a nice day. The windows are open. You may be able to hear the birds and everything over the microphone, not sure. But I wanted to jump in here and tell you a couple different things. And by the way, if this is your first time here, welcome. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and everything down below. And the notifications and all that. So I wanted to jump on here because I'm trying to make a few changes to the channel. And one of them is that I realized I had never done a video where I'm actually talking to you, live and going over everything. It's always a voiceover or just music. So I wanted to have more of a one-on-one type of conversation and really kind of bring me into this more than just my artwork and kind of explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing stuff. So there's going to be more personalized videos on here of the different things I'm doing, the different artwork, some of which are going to be paintings like what we're going to do today. Some will be digital, some will be traditional, and then I'm also going to bring in some of my actual sculptures and ceramics and stuff like that, because I want to show you those things as well, and I really enjoy doing them, so I want to bring more into it and make this really more of an engaging experience for everyone, and again have that personal connection, because I just haven't done so. So I hope you enjoy this. I'm using Rebelle 3 to do this painting that I'm going to show you. And I guess really without further ado, let's jump into that and I'll kind of explain what I'm doing. I do have it sped up, just so you know. It took me about an hour to paint it, and I've got it sped up to, I believe, 3 times the speed. So it was 3 or 5. I'll have to look at it real quick. But anyway, hope you enjoy it, and let's jump into the painting. Okay, so it is sped up 5 times from what I did. So let's kind of look at what we're doing here. I've got one of the watercolor papers that comes with it set in here. I have it set to run and drip, so you can see it doing so from the top. And basically what I'm starting out doing is putting in just some color for the sky and playing around with the drip and the run, because I want to get that kind of organic blending. There is a blender brush, which I have right now, and from there what I'm doing is blending in the colors and trying to get some of the gradation and everything kind of fade together so that I can, keep that organic feel. That is one thing I really like about Rebelle, is that it does keep this organic feel of real watercolors, and it just is nice. Now the downside for Rebelle 3, it is mathematic heavy, which means it puts a lot of pull on your processor. I've got a fairly decent computer, and with 12 gigs of RAM and a pretty good graphics card that's built into it, but there's the problem, it's built into it. So it does put a lot of strain on it as far as that goes, and so that's the downside. The good side is that if you're patient and can work with it, it'll really show a lot of the stuff and just realistic. So that's what I've done in the background here, and then I decided I wanted to kind of mask out where I'm going to put the actual mountains that I'm doing. So I've got that on there, and then the colors I wanted to do were just really push the purples and the oranges and peachish kind of colors. So that's what I started doing here. And again, you can really see it since it's sped up, how the colors bleed and run. Now if you play around with the tilt, which is what I'm doing in the upper right hand corner, by turning that on and kind of playing back and forth with which direction it's doing, it's basically simulating that I'm picking up one end of the board and letting the water run to the other end. And so whichever direction that line points, like right now it's pointed about 1 o'clock, the water, quote unquote, will run that direction. So you can get some really neat effects by going back and forth, because each time you do, it leaves a little bit of the color, just like it would if it were real watercolors. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, is playing around with it and throwing in different amounts. I do have a brush that I made that I'm using. I called it a feather brush because I played around with it using the smudge settings and changed the settings for multiply and all that, so that it was really putting less of a strain on my system, but it was giving me a nice brush. And there are links that Rebelle has put out not links, there are videos that Rebelle has put out on how to set these up. So I'll put a link to that down below, and that way you can jump over to it and see it. But, you know, I really like the feel and the play of this. And so one thing I noticed here when I was doing this, and I started to take this another direction, was that as I put in these spatters down below to kind of give it some texture, it really started reminding me of some Chinese watercolor techniques. So I think one of the ones I'm going to do next is probably going to have some of those techniques in it to get that feel. But anyway, so I wanted to play around with, you know, kind of some mist in the bottom and the flow of it, and then work with some clouds in the top. And so really right now I'm blocking in still big colors, you know, and trying to get that feel for it. And then from there I'm going to start playing around with the details. Now what I did here was I put a layer between these other two layers. So my background's on one layer, the mountain's on one layer, and then between them I wanted to go in and fill in any of those gaps with some dark color, and that's what I'm doing here, is taking that and filling it in so that it gives me that set apart kind of look to it. And then I'm taking the blender brush, which you can't really see too much right now, but I'm taking the blender brush and blending it in, and then erasing some of the points and stuff right there that were on the top, because I realized that there had been a lot of little jagged edges that were left from the masking it out. So right now I'm taking the watercolor brush and brushing in some highlights on the mountain and letting it kind of bleed a little bit and fade in. That's one of the great things about a watercolor, is that you can get really beautiful transitions and play around with it. So that's what I'm doing here. And just trying to get that, again, that push and pull of peach. The nice thing too about the watercolor is that once you let it blend out, you can really then use the Alt key to select color. And so you'll see me here kind of going back and forth with the color and changing it. And that's what I'm doing. Now I went in with the pencil right here because the pencil was giving me some nice effect, because it does pick up the paper. And I liked by having it on the charcoal setting, it was giving kind of the feel of rocks and cracks and crevices. So I wanted to play around with that. I decided I wanted to throw in some of this reddish kind of orange color. So I was just throwing it in here to give some different color pops and looks. I am playing around, and you'll see it kind of zoom in and zoom out. A lot of this painting I painted at zoomed out, so that way I don't get focused up on just one spot of it, and then only zoomed in when I really needed to take a look at the details. But here I took the pen tool, and I am inking in some lines, some cracks and crevices. So there I grabbed that off-color purple, decided I wanted to put kind of a misty mountain in the background. So that's what I did there. And then back to the mountain itself, just throwing in some darks and some crevices. I have a Huion tablet monitor kind of thing. And so when I'm doing this part here, to stay loose, I hold it very much like I would paintbrush. In other words, I'm holding pretty much the end of the pen instead of holding it like a pencil, where you're down on the writing end. I'm actually holding it almost all the way back on the back end of the pencil to draw around with it, because it just keeps me looser and playing around with it, which sometimes does have some effects, like that one I just did. I pushed a little harder and I still got some cool effect out of it, but it was a lot harder, a lot more ink than I meant to do. But the nice thing about it is you can erase and move on. So here I wanted to start putting in some additional highlights and playing around with those some more. And so that's what I'm doing here, and trying to break up some of the lines also. And I'll go back and forth from the pen to the watercolor brush to the pencil, but really start sticking with the ink fountain pen and the watercolor brush, and just start throwing in highlights and colors and everything else. So just trying to round out the shape of the mountain and put some background in a little bit more. And then I was like, okay, I want to add some extra depth, so I need to push some cracks and crevices some more, and then eventually I'll start adding in some clouds and everything else. So But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun process. It's a really fun thing to play around. It is frustrating at times because this very much does behave like real watercolors. So if you've not messed around with watercolors a lot, which I haven't in a while, it does take getting used to. I've got several other, probably about 6 paintings that are about halfway done just because I got frustrated. I was like, I'm going to work on something else. But I think I am going to do some more Chinese watercolors because this works fantastic for those. And I've got a fish that I've done recently that I think worked great in this. So I'm going to try and do some of those, maybe some koi or something like that. And then I want to go back and do some dragons. I was working on some dragons. And oh, by the way, right here what I'm doing is I'm trying to blend color so I can get the color that I want and then kind of play around with it. So then once I get it, I start really kind of messing around more. But I have been working on some dragons because people had requested me to do some and all that, but I've just been, it's just not been clicking. And so I'm going to go back and work on those some more as well and try and get those done because again, they're one of the paintings that are just sitting there. So I realized with these clouds that I wanted to put them in and have them, you know, be really random, be really add to that dimension of it. So what I did here was, again, using that blender brush and the watercolor brush on the spatter, just started playing around with them and grabbing the highlights and tones, trying not to go so much with white, but in almost white, and then just pushing and pulling the look of it and the colors. So you get some really nice clouds out of it, you know, at least in my opinion. And you can really mess around with the light kind of streaming through different areas. So that's what I'm doing here, is trying to get that feel. I wanted a little bit of a shadow cloud, so I grabbed some of the color from the background and did that and threw it in there. And then one thing I realized was that down here in the bottom was a little too plain. And so I play around with that just a little bit, but not to the point where, you know, I'm overly taking away from. That was what I was worried about. I was worried about I was starting to piddle and play around with it too much. So I reached that point that I always reach, where my brain just says, and done. So, but I did want to kind of, you know, bring some of those rock shapes and colors down a little more. So that's what I'm doing here. And then again, back up to the top, back down to the bottom, and playing around. I reduced the water here on that same watercolor brush, and I really like the effect it gave me for those clouds, just kind of streaming in. And then as I was doing it here, I was like, oh wait, that would work really well for the texture on the mountain. So I took it back and went into the mountain and kind of played around with it some more and really liked that. So that was kind of one of those, to quote Bob Ross, one of those happy accidents. And it just was neat. So again, trying to get more of the highlights and shadows and stuff, and clouds moving across and giving some depth. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I wanted to, again, keep this very painterly. I'm not trying to go for photorealistic. I'm just trying to go impressionistic and just kind of capture a feel of what I want. And so that's kind of what I was doing here. Same brush, by the way, right here is that same watercolor brush, which I'm going to use for a lot of these textures moving forward, because that worked really, really well just by changing the water amount that was in it. And the canvas is actually dry at this point too. If I had thought, I would have switched over and shown you that. But the canvas was dry. I dried it after I merged everything. Plus, in Rebelle, when you switch stuff, it dries the canvas anyway when you switch layers. So that's it. There you go. That is pretty much the end of that painting. And like I said, I wanted to show you the way it looked and how it was, how I went through the process and did it. I know that was really quick for that, so I hope you liked it. So let's maybe switch back over to me so you can see me. Okay, so there you have it. That's that painting. That is an hour condensed down into 12 minutes, so sped up by 5 times. Which, you know, if that left you with questions like how did I do this, or why did I do that, or what would I recommend for this or that, leave a comment below. Just ask the question. I do my best to get to them as fast as they come in, be them positive or negative. Always happy to try and answer and learn, because I've had people give me feedback. They're like, well, I didn't like this, blah, blah, which is fine. You know, you give me some input and let me know. But I hope you got something out of it. I really do. And I would love to answer whatever questions you have. Make sure to, again, hit the subscribe button and, connect with me here. Connect with me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, which I'll put the link there as well. And, just ask whatever questions you have about it. So I'm going to do more. This is probably the 5th painting I've done in Rebelle 3, so still very new with it and getting very used to it. But I hope to do more of them moving forward because, again, I really like the organic feel of the watercolor aspect of it. I do like some stuff better in Art Rage 5. For example, inking and everything, the pressure seems to pick up better there than it does in Rebelle. So not sure, but I'm not giving up Art Rage 5. For those of you that have seen my stuff for a while, you know that I really like that program, and I still do. It's just I'm playing around with this one for right now. So again, I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you got something out of it. Like I've said it probably 16 times now because I'm really not used to being on camera like this. But have a great, fantastic day. I'm going to enjoy the rain outside and just listen to it, probably go read a book or something. So thanks so much.